You are a part of the incredible group Mustard Plug, and this is another great album for you. Where did all my friends go? I know that people have described your sound as sort of just ska, but how do you guys tend to define your sound?
Well, we're not traditional ska, so we're not trying to emulate the sounds of the first wave out of Jamaica. Um, and like a lot of the Midwest bands, in the '90s, we absorbed a whole lot of musical influences to come up with our original sound. And also, like a lot of Midwest bands, we were pretty goofy when we started out. But over the years, the band's sound has really matured and settled into more of a pop punk ska amalgam, but the ska rhythm is always in there somewhere with the guitar. But you also hear a lot of the punk and hard elements, and definitely pop and news as well.
You have mentioned some of you mentioned musical influences. Who were some of them when you were growing up?
Well, it depends on probably which member of the band you ask. For me, I'm a little bit older than everybody else in the band. And I grew up in a small town. So I really grew up on a lot of the rock and roll of the '70s. But on my own, I got into new wave music and, some of the pop music of the '80s, Prince, the Tubes, Devo. And then, punk was not a real big, not a real big influence in my small town. Had to go to a little bit bigger towns farther away to pick up on that. But when I was in college, definitely college rock was taking off, and that's kind of where my interests went. I'm very omnivorous in my musical consumption, and I've played in blues bands and rock and roll bands, so I bring a lot of that to our sound as well, especially in the tone on my saxophone is very influenced by '70s rock and Clarence Clemens from Bruce Springsteen's bands and Bobby Keys, who played with the Rolling Stones. Um, there are times when I'd like to kind of mellow out and play along in some rock steady style, but that's not where we're at really musically.
You guys have this new album out, and Fall Apart is the first single off of it. What was it about this particular track that made it the perfect starter for Where Did All My Friends Go?
You know, it's hard to tell when you're workshopping new songs which ones are really going to emerge as the strongest and the obvious choices. And I think we were pretty surprised once we recorded this where it ended up. And it was sort of an aha moment. It's like, oh, wow, this is really one of the better songs of the batch. And it just seemed to come out as something that had the right energy to be an introduction to the overall album. It's very much in the vein of the punk and pop punk side of ska that we like. So and thematically too, it kind of deals with some of the getting older and dealing with the pandemic and the changes in the scene that our band has been a part of for all these years. So thematically, it was really kind of central to what the album is about. But I mean, the melodies and the hooks and what Colin is doing on the guitar really elevated this once we recorded it. And it was not a difficult choice to put this out as the first song.
You guys are a part of social media. What kind of fan response have you already been receiving to Fall Apart?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, a big part of that is teaming up with and signing to Bad Time Records. We are, we're pretty good at social media, but when you get connected with some millennials that are running the show for a lot of different bands, you'll learn a little bit more about how to connect with your audience. And as far as the response in this past week, it's really been overwhelming. We've picked up a lot of new followers on our social media accounts. We've had great feedback from people about the track. We're super psyched to hear what they think about the next song that'll be coming out, and of course the full album on September 8th. It's but it's been really positive. Older fans really dig it because it reminds them of all the fun they had listening to Mustard Plug back in the day. And then this new genre, or this new generation rather, of ska fans is really connecting with it too.
When it comes to your songwriting, for the band, do you all sort of come up with an idea individually and then bring it to the band and sort of flesh it out? Or is there one particular person that tends to focus more on the songwriting aspect of things? And then you each craft in, like, your saxophone part would be great here, and the guitar section has to go here.
Yeah, I've only recently rejoined the band for the creative process. I was out of the band for a number of years and working in the nonprofit sector. And so this is really the first project that I've been deeply involved in since the Big Daddy Multitude album, which came out a long time ago. This is, the process that I observed coming back into the band is that really this album was shaped a great deal by the pandemic. The band had to, hang out at home. And so Colin came up with a lot of guitar parts, a lot of the basic structure of the songs. He had bits and pieces of songs and riffs laying around that he dusted off to bring to the project. And just with the extra free time that he had, generated a lot of the core of the songs. And Dave also had quite a few concepts, including, starting with some of the lyrical ideas to get the song started, and as well as some of the melody. And then as far as the horn parts go, when I started getting involved in practicing the new songs and getting ready for recording, Jim Hofer, our trombone player, had pretty much developed the horn lines already, kind of like Colin. He had a couple of ideas that he'd been sitting on for several years that he wanted to get on an album and in a song and incorporate those, but also coming up with the right horn lines that fit well with the overall structure and melodies of the songs. So he had written a lot of that out on keyboard, and from that was able to generate charts for Brandon Jennison, our trumpet player, and me to jump in and start, fine tuning these things and making sure we like the structure and of the songs overall. So really, again, some of Jim's great horn lines of his career are on this album.
I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Yeah. Kudos to him.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I get brought in to add extra volume and texture. For most of the past 25 years, the guys have been a two-part brass horn section, trumpet and trombone. And I might be a little biased, but I really think that raspier sound of the reed and a metal mouthpiece on a tenor saxophone adds just a extra palette of color to the horn lines. And then I blasted out a couple of solos as well during the project that were my contribution. But for the most part, it was Jim coming up with these horn lines and the beginning structure of the songs that we built from.
The album was produced by Bill Stevenson, Chris Biebel, and Andrew Berlin. But does the band tend to have sort of a hands-on say when it comes to the production aspect of the music you guys make? Or do you guys play your part and then you trust sort of the crafting of it to find the sound that you all really love for that particular track?
Yeah, I mean, it's really collaborative. I think we trust those guys at the Blasting Room so much because this is the fourth album that Mustard Plug has worked with Blasting Room on, and knowing the engineers, and Andrew with his ability to bring out the best of sounds for the horns, whether it was just setting up the microphones in the studio or compiling some of the tracks that we had recorded into something better. His direction was certainly a key part of what the horns were doing, and Chris as well. And it was a very much a collaborative effort. When we were in the studio, there's kind of a bunkhouse attached, and so I remember getting up in the morning and heading to the shower and hearing Colin already down the hall laying down guitar tracks with Chris, and the multiple layers, multiple sounds and textures that are in the songs that we ended up recording really speaks to how creative those guys are. And then, of course, for the final mixing, and Bill Stevenson was, he directed the drum recording a few days before the horns and Dave arrived. So he really, I mean, Nate's a fantastic drummer. He's an animal, and Bill worked him over for 4 days before we got there, such that he was kind of a whimpering mass when we arrived. He enjoyed it, but it was work because Bill's the greatest punk rock drummer in the history of the genre, and it shows. And he knows how to bring out the best in a drummer, including, teaching somebody how to relearn how they do some things. And then, again, at night when Bill would come in the studio to work with us on vocals, Bill is very, very particular on vocals, and has an incredible ear for melody, for harmony, for building multi-track feels. And it's kind of like our band was expanded to 4 members, or to 10 members as we work through all of this.
That's great.
But at the same time, we get invited in to listen to stuff. As the tracking is going on, and as the compositions start to come towards their final version, and that's where we listen and help guide Bill and the engineers further on that process.
Well, there's 13 new tracks, and a couple of my standouts are Fall Apart and Which Way Is Up. So do you have a particular song or songs on this album that really hold a special significance for you?
Fall Apart definitely is something that speaks to me at this stage in my life, lyrically. But there's quite a variety of sounds on there. So we brought in some synthesizer. Yeah, so Which Way Is Up is a kind of an outlier in our catalog, right? Because it's very prominent with this 80s keyboard in the front that Patricio, our buddy from little recall problem. Oh, our buddy Patricio from the Planet Smashers played the synth on that, and really brought a really unique phrasing to the horn line, or to the keyboard line that we had developed for that. Yeah, Why Does It Have to Be So Hard is another one I like. I mean, it's kind of a more laid back tune, and we're playing around with that live because it's got a melodica that Jim plays at the beginning and throughout the song. And also on some of these songs, I use baritone sax for some different textures. I don't know. It changes from day to day which ones are really stand out for me. I think we're all pretty happy with the way they all turned out. What's the one? Distraction. Rebel Youth Bass is kind of weird because, and I don't know how much other guys in the band get this, but Dave and I agree that it sounds like an old Big Audio Dynamite song. That it's just got kind of this quirky phrasing, and the soundstage of it sounds a little bit like those mid 80s and late 80s Big Audio Dynamite songs.
What do you hope lingers with audiences then who explore this particular album as a whole? Is there a message or something you hope they take away from Where Did All My Friends Go?
I hope our older fans are able to see that this is, we're still progressing, and we're still evolving as a band. I mean, the core sound is still there, the core energy is there, but we took some chances and brought in some different instruments. There's some theremin sounds, some of the extra percussion, adding in more baritone sax on a couple of the songs. So hopefully it feels new to them in that regard. And hopefully they recognize that, we have, continued to be more sophisticated as a band. from the early days of singing about girls and burritos and beer and all of those things. That it's a little bit more of an opportunity for us as older dudes to reflect on life as we experience and see it now. And for the younger fans, and people who are getting new to our band or maybe discovering us through our affiliation with Bad Time, we hope that they'll really appreciate the melodic spine that's underneath a lot of our music, and that we're not the flashiest band, instrument wise, but we are solid and we build our sound around the song, and that we can really throw a great party around memorable melodies and strong beats.
You guys are headed out here on tour come September. Will we be hearing some new tracks off this album live coming up? And which ones are you looking forward to performing live, actually? The ones that we touched on, maybe that were your favorites?
Yeah, I think I can't wait to play Fall Apart live. We have not done that yet. Now that people have had a chance to live with it for a while and to be more familiar with it, I mean, that familiarity breeds affection.
Contempt is the phrase, my friend.
Well, it's all around. Affection. Familiarity breeds affection. If the song is good. So we're hoping that people are really into that. The title track, Where Did All My Friends Go? We played that a couple of times on our recent shows in Canada, and that goes over pretty well. That song is a stand-up because of how it just feels epic. The chord progressions feel epic, and I hope people are going to sing along to that. And things that are a little more reggae influenced, a little more ska, beat sounding. I think that'll bring a different kind of vibe. And hopefully we get a chance to incorporate some of these different instruments into the live show too. But, we try not to recreate, the full orchestration when we're out there, because it makes things a little complicated. And, we're not bringing a keyboard player on.
I was going to say, there's already so many of you. How can you fit on a stage?
It's not the stage, it's the van. There's no more room in the van. Between us 7 plus a
they have like an actual caravan coming behind you with different members on their own.
Yeah, I mean, if people keep, tell all your friends to buy the record and stream it all the time when you're sleeping, and then we'll get enough that we can buy a bigger vehicle, then we can add a keyboard player.
I was going to say that way the gas mileage is actually covered and more people can join. The price of gas is going up, but a bigger van sounds much more economical.
Yeah. I mean, again, coming back to the band after 25 years and climbing into this van that these guys are so familiar with, I do a lot of whining about the van because, I feel like there's a better world out there somewhere. They're like, no, this is our van. This is how it is. Deal with it.
Clearly it's worked for you before, and you guys are just gonna have to realize there's no changing at this point.
Yeah.
Is there assigned seating at this point as well?
No, but there is definitely protocol as far as bands goes. I'm still learning, who gets a bench to themselves when, and who gets to ride shotgun when, and I find that the more I drive, the more privileges I get.
I'm sure. What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the wonderful music that Mustard Plug continues to make?
Oh man, thanks everybody that's been with us for all these years or many of these years, and welcome to our new fans and friends. If you haven't been to a Mustard Plug show, I hope you come see us. We've got a lot of shows coming up later this year, and we'll be announcing more for 2024. And come and experience it live. The energy is infectious. I can't help but move around on stage when we start playing, much to my regret, perhaps the day after. But it's a good time, and again, the fans that have been with us for a long time, that's the reason why we're still on the road and still doing this crazy project of ours 30 years later.